Have you been curious about learning some jazz guitar but felt completely overwhelmed by the complexity of the music?
Holy what do all these little dots mean? More like the real hard book.
Or maybe you've learned a few swing tunes, but you've been discouraged because you caught a few vibes from a more experienced musician at a jam session.
Joker.
Or maybe you just didn't know which direction to choose in the vast world of swing rhythm guitar players. All jokes aside, if you come from a background outside of the realm of swing or jazz music, you've probably been a little intimidated by the music itself. But never fear. Today we're going to be using some simple chord shapes that you've probably already seen to get up and running with swing guitar in no time. After we learn those chords, I'm going to be breaking down 3 of the most iconic styles of swing rhythm guitar so that you have a full, colorful palette to choose from whenever you dive into one of those standards at the next jam session. I'm also going to be showing you how to put those swing styles to work in the #1 most common swing chord progression. Before we dive into the lesson though, I just want to remind you real quick that if you're looking for backing tracks, play-alongs, and a PDF of today's exercises, go ahead and check out the link below in the description to the Guitar Club. Alright my friend, let's go ahead and dive in. The first thing we need to check out is a set of chords that we're going to use for all 3 of these rhythm styles today. So the first chord that we need to learn is a simple D7 chord. This one's a 3-note inversion that was really popular among swing guitar players, and it's going to serve you well. The next one we need is a simple 3-note G7 chord. And guess what? We're going to recycle those 2 inversions for all of the other chords that we need for our chord progression. So the chords we need to learn in total are D7, G7, move that G7 up 2 frets, we've got an A7, up another 2 frets, we've got a B7, and the only other chord left is an E7. Alright, let's go ahead and learn the #1 most common jazz chord progression out there, the jazz blues. This is simply just a 12-bar blues that has a few extra chord changes you might not be used to. Most of us coming from bluegrass or folk music know the 12-bar blues to be a 1, 4, 1, 5, 1 kind of progression, but this one has a few twists and turns in it. We're going to put a 6 chord and a 2 chord in there, or a 5 of 2 and a 5 of 5 in there if we want to get really technical about it, okay? So the 12-bar blues progression, it's going to pop up on your screen here, but you can follow along with me. We're going to play a D7 chord first, a G7 chord, and then a D7 chord again. Hold that for 2 bars, back to a G7, a G7, D7, and then up to a B7, E7, A7, and here's the tricky part, D7, B7, E7, A7. And that's the whole thing right there. So now that you've got an idea for the #1 most used jazz chord progression out there, let's go ahead and talk about some specific ways to phrase that chord progression. The first style that we're going to talk about here today is what's commonly referred to as Freddie Green rhythm style, or Freddie Green comping. Freddie Green was the guitarist for the Count Basie Orchestra and was known for this iconic 4 strums to a bar kind of rhythm style. Most modern jazz guys tend to comp a little more sparsely, but Freddie's approach was more of a percussive style that articulates every beat. Before we talk about the specifics of it, let me play through the 12-bar blues one time using Freddie Green comping style, and then we'll break it down. Alright, here we go. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, there you have it, the Freddie Green style of comping over the 12-bar jazz blues. So #1, you probably noticed this, there's kind of a slight emphasis on beats 2 and 4 in each measure, right? A 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, another thing that helps us achieve that articulation, after I phrase each chord, you see what happens to my left hand? I dampen the strings after I strum through the chord. This is going to be something that pops up in the next two styles that we're talking about as well. So it's really key that you get that down. After every beat, lift up on your fingers to separate each beat from one another. Otherwise, you get this crazy sustained sound, which doesn't really swing all that much. But with separation, one other thing I should mention, to get that slight emphasis on beat 2 and 4, you should think about moving your hand through the strings a little quicker on those beats. I think velocity matters in terms of getting swing feel down on the Freddie Green style. Now let's go ahead and dive into that 12-bar blues, maybe a little bit slower, to see if you can play along with me. I'm going to have all the chord diagrams pop up on screen, so it should be real easy to follow, okay? A 1, 2, ready, play. There you have it, my friend, the basic mechanics of Freddie Green style comping. Let's go ahead and move on to our second rhythm style today, and this is honestly one of my personal favorites. You probably know this if you've seen the channel before. I'm a huge fan of Western swing music, and the next style that we're going to talk about is the style that most Western swing guitar players use when they're phrasing their chords. This one can be referred to as sock style rhythm or simply Western swing style rhythm guitar. The main difference between Freddie Green style rhythm and this style is that beats 2 and 4, we actually dampen all of the strings and do a hard sock or chuck through the strings. Let me demonstrate that real quick for you. A 1, 2, ready, swing. Just like with Freddie Green style, we phrase each chord by strumming through all 3 strings of it. And then on beats 2 and 4, we dampen, lift our hand. We don't want to take them completely off the strings, right? We want to leave it right over the notes that we're playing for those chords. But we also kind of want to use our index finger to block out all of the strings on the guitar so we get a nice sock. That's the main thing that you want to get down about Western swing style guitar, and this is definitely a style that I hear pop up in bluegrass and acoustic jam sessions in general, so it's definitely one you want to have down. Okay, let's go ahead and try that 12-bar blues out at 100 beats per minute again, just so you can play along with me. A 1, 2, ready, go. Alright, my friend, that only leaves us with one more style before you are a swing rhythm guitar expert. So the last style that I want to show you is what's commonly referred to as la pompe. And this is the style that's used by our gypsy jazz or jazz manouche friends. The first thing I want to talk about before we dive into learning la pompe, though, is that gypsy jazz players often stray away from those 3-note voicings and prefer full 6-note, 4-note or 5-note kind of voicings on the guitar. This helps them get a little more growl and a more aggressive sound on the guitar. So let's look at our chord inversions again and modify them a bit to get more of an appropriate sound for the gypsy jazz style la pompe. If you grab that first D7 inversion that we have and then just take your ring finger and bar it down, and then use your middle finger to bar across the bottom 2 strings, you're going to have a D9 chord. So gypsy jazz guys really like to use that as a 1 chord in a D major blues. And then to modify our G7 chord, we're actually going to take our ring finger, put it down on the 3rd fret of the B string, and replace where it was with our pinky. You'll see that one pop up too. So that should be it. We can modify the rest of our chords to kind of fit any of those shapes. Our A7 becomes that, our B7 becomes that, our E7 becomes that. Now let's see what it sounds like to play La Pompe at 130 beats per minute on the 12-bar blues. So you may have noticed some differences between that and the previous two styles. I think La Pompe is closer to the Freddie Green style, but with a much shorter articulation, meaning that we need to release our hand even quicker after we strum through each chord to get that real short, snappy kind of articulation. There's also the same kind of emphasis. You know, beats 2 and 4 get kind of a heavier accent with the right hand, and you may have noticed, like I said, that growling quality to the rhythm with those 6-string or 5-string inversions on the guitar. I'm not an expert at this style, but I think it can be a great tool to have in your back pocket to get more of a gypsy jazz flavor out of a tune when you're playing some of these swing standards in your jam circle. Let's go ahead and see what this one sounds like at 110 beats per minute. Watch those chord diagrams on the screen and feel free to play along. All right, here we go. 1, 2, a 1, 2, ready, play. One last thing I want to say about La Pompe, you can totally get away with using those 3-note inversions there. It's just going to sound a little less robust and a little less gypsy jazz. So let's see what that sounds like, but I think it's still an appropriate left-hand phrasing to use if you choose it. A 1, 2, ready, play. Now 6-string. See what I mean? When I went to those full chord voicings, it sounded a little more snappy, punchy, growly. I tend to prefer those for the gypsy jazz style, but when you're getting your feet wet with this, feel free to stick with those 3-note inversions, okay? Before we get out of here today, I've edited together all 3 of these different rhythm styles on one chorus of the 12-bar jazz blues. So let's check that out and see what they sound like side by side so we can really get a sense for those stylistic differences. All right, here we go. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, ready, go. Alright, there you have it, my friend. I hope that edit was helpful to kind of see some of those specific differences between the swing styles and maybe help you choose which one might be more appropriate for the styles of jazz music that you're going to encounter in your local jam sessions. I guess that's it for today's lesson. I hope this information has been really valuable and will help remove some of that intimidation the next time you head to one of your jam sessions to play a few swing tunes. Before we get out of here, drop us a comment below and let us know what you thought of this lesson and maybe which of these styles is your favorite. Thanks so much for checking this video out and making it to the end. We'll catch you in the next one.